We have a special guest in the room. You know her from Flashdance, and now you know her as Chicago's first female police superintendent.
Yeah.
On the Chicago Code, Jennifer Beals.
Jennifer Beals. Is there a man, woman, or child alive that doesn't love you?
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Sorry, I can't help stare. You and I have so much in common, too. I realized last night...
We can hold hands. We're so close. We're sitting so close.
You don't want to do that. But you graduated with the honors from Yale University.
I did.
And that's where I thought we had so much in common. I almost graduated.
Where? Anywhere?
That's not the point. No, you are something else. Oh, God.
And a photographer?
And a triathlete?
Yes, a very, very slow triathlete, I have to say.
And you modeled for a while?
I did, to make money to pay for Yale.
Yeah. And she's a fan of hockey.
Well, you know, my husband's Canadian. What am I going to do?
I know. Have you ever? And I know that your child loves the watching the hockey too.
Yes, she does.
She's a big hockey fan. Have you ever heard of the Leafs?
I have,
what
but
have
being from Vancouver, it's not on the top of our list.
Yeah, well, being from Toronto, it's not
on the top.
We're done with that.
So congratulations on the show.
Thank you so much.
This is a really cool. You headed back to Chicago to do this, your hometown.
I did. It's been really interesting and great to reconnect with old friends. Mm-hmm. You know, I spent time with my friends that I knew in high school, and their kids babysit my daughter, and it's fun. And just to be back amongst that architecture makes me incredibly happy. Yeah. It's such a beautiful city.
It is.
Where were you born? What part of the city were you?
I was born in Chicago.
Right in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. I was born in Chicago.
You lived on both sides, though, right?
Yes, I lived first on the south side, and then we moved to the north side. Yeah. So,
do you ever find yourself in a location near that neighborhood?
Actually, I did. We were on this location where something particularly horrible was supposed to be happening, and in the show. And I thought, gosh, this looks really familiar to me. I don't know why I know this neighborhood. And I called my mom, and I gave her the address where I was, and she said, your father used to have a store on the corner there when you were very, very young.
Wow.
Yeah, and now that store has cameras outside to keep away all the riffraff. There's a lady inside the store who, if somebody's loitering outside, she goes, stand away from the door. You know? Well, not a southern accent, but she'll...
Now, on the show that debuted last week, there was a store at the beginning of the show that had to finally close because the owner was paying off all the people to...
Yes, he's supposed to be my father. There's an image of what's supposed to be me as a young girl, and I'm watching how my father has to keep paying off all these people to keep the store running, to illustrate all the kinds of corruption that goes on in Chicago, who you have to pay off to get the garbage picked up, who you have to pay off to get this permit or that permit. And finally, in the story of the show, her father has to shut down the store because he can't afford to keep it open, and the family starts to disintegrate, and her parents end up getting divorced, and so she sees firsthand as a child what it can mean, this kind of corruption. But truly, her continued fight as an adult against corruption can't just be in reaction to something when she's a child. It can't just be about revenge. And I think really what it is that she really compulsively wants to help people and save people. And there's something about keeping people safe, in particular keeping her officers safe on the street and keeping the people of Chicago safe.
Yeah. We're talking with Jennifer Beals of Flashdance, the L Word, and now the Chicago Code. Now didn't you get shot on the first episode? Is there going to be a second episode?
I did.
Somebody
tried to take me out.
Are you all right?
Did you make it to the second episode?
I did. I made it to the second episode, and now we're on to the third episode.
She recovers very well. She's got very strong constitution.
I recovered because my driver gave me his vest, and that's why I survived, and that's why he did not.
Marilyn's got mine on right now.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You know what some of the officers keep in their vests is a little bit of Tiger Balm, so that when they go into a building where there are dead bodies, they put the Tiger Balm under their nose so they don't have to smell the body, so they can get through.
So did you have to follow some? Did you follow some Chicago cops around?
Yes, absolutely. Detective John Felino has been our technical advisor, and I've spent a lot of time with him and many of the other officers. But we would go on ride-alongs, and on one particular ride-along I went on, we were the first to respond to a shooting in Austin where this guy had been shot, and when we arrived, he was bleeding almost to unconsciousness on somebody's stoop, and I got to see how the police dealt with him, how they set up the crime scene. We followed the trail of blood to figure out where he had been shot. He had walked for almost like 2 blocks.
Wow.
And the detectives were able to tell me, because of the evidence, where they thought the shooter was standing and where there might be shells from the bullets, which we needed to gather for evidence. And so I thought, oh, well, I can do that. So
Did the sight of you revive him?
No.
That's too bad.
No, and it's and what was amazing is that no ambulance arrived within 20 minutes, and the only reason the guy survived was because the firemen's paramedics saved him.
Oh, he did survive, thank God.
He
after
did.
that
No,
statement.
he survived.
Good.
But you know, one of the things that the detective pointed out is, he said, look at him. He said, look at he was wearing shorts. He said, look at his legs, and you could see that there were other bullet wounds, old bullet wounds.
Oh.
So this was not the first time he had been shot, and that
Was
it was
that
really
50 Cent?
clear that it was a gang war. And so nobody was telling the police what they knew at all. You knew that amongst this group of people, there must be several people who had an idea of who shot this guy, but nobody would say anything. And so by doing these ride-alongs, you get a sense of the dangers that the police go through, the disrespect that's on the street, which you can imagine is because of the behavior of a minority of officers, and what an uphill battle it is sometimes to solve a crime when nobody's willing to come forward,
No one
and
will
how
speak.
frustrating it can be.
Imagine piecing it together like that. And I don't know how they do it, but I love these shows that kind of give you an insight into that.
What also the show does, which really interests me, is to give you an insight as to why people would stay with this kind of job that's so difficult. You know, and it gets into the relationships of the characters, not only with each other, but to their job, and why they would stay in such a job.
Well, it's getting great reviews.
What kind of shifts are you working on that job? Or do you work how many days on and how many hours?
Wow, it's usually
The
7
4
out of 8 days, and mostly like 16-hour days.
Do you take it home
Those are
with you,
cop
Jennifer?
hours.
Oh, you know, I didn't realize how much I took it with me until I tried to go on vacation, and it was very hard. Because, you know, cops are on the defensive all the time. Like, every time they walk into a room, they're sussing out, consciously or unconsciously, any kind of danger that's in a room. And I didn't realize how much I was taking that with me. And also playing the first female superintendent, there is a great degree of having to suppress what is stereotypically feminine characteristics, you know, anything that's nurturing, anything that's inclusive, in order to not be perceived as being weak. And that was the most grating on me. That is the most trying. And I was doing a lot of boxing at the time, and now it's like, no boxing. I'm not boxing. I'm just going to do yoga. I'm going to do swimming, and maybe I'll start knitting. You know,
That's not part of the triathlon.
No.
Knitting is not one of the sports. But would you
no
ever
show.
gone into the business? Would have you ever become a police officer had you not known?
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't last 30 seconds on the street.
I just wanted to
Honestly.
change it. I think it's fascinating.
It's called the
Fascinating
Chicago
work.
Code. It's on Monday nights on Global. And by the way, you look good in a uniform.
Oh, thanks.
She does.
And Jennifer
Polyester.
Beals. Jennifer Beals on your show today, Marilyn, at 10 o'clock on
She's my
CTV.
special guest today. Can't wait.